Have you ever watched a live TV show and felt in one single moment that the entire room stopped breathing? Tonight, that is exactly what happened. What was supposed to be a simple, polished interview with superstar couple Yulong and Yang, Mei Mei suddenly turned into one of the most personal, vulnerable, and unforgettable confessions we have ever seen on screen. No scandal, no argument, no staged drama. Instead, a secret that had been quietly protected for months. Backhand index pointing right, their first pregnancy, their first child, and a journey that almost never made it into the light. Stay with me because what they revealed live on television was not just a headline. It was a story about fear, courage, and the kind of love that completely changes who you are. This is Update X24H, and tonight, we take you inside the moment the world discovered that Yulong and Yang Mei Mei had been parents long before anyone knew. The program began like countless others. Polished introductions, a well-lit set, the gentle hum of cameras and crew moving just out of frame. Yet from the moment Yulong and Yang Mei Mei walked onto the stage, there was a slight shift in the air. They were smiling, but not with the effortless lightness that usually follows actors onto a sofa. Their steps were measured, their hands linked in a way that felt less like a pose and more like an anchor. The audience sensed it first. Laughter, which would normally come easily, seemed to hesitate. Even the host, trained to keep the mood buoyant, instinctively lowered their tone. It was as if everyone present understood, without any words being spoken, that something fragile was being carried into the room. The set, designed for entertainment, suddenly felt like a confessional space. The usual distance between studio and living room began to dissolve. This was no longer just content. It was a moment in two people's lives, unfolding in real time, and the silence that settled over the studio was not empty. It was full of anticipation, of unspoken questions, of quiet respect. When the host asked how they had been, it sounded like a routine question. Instead of the expected anecdotes about filming or travel, Yulong paused. He did not reach for a joke, nor for a rehearsed line. He simply looked into the camera and allowed a brief silence to sit between him and the audience. Then, with a voice that was steady but not entirely free of tremor, he said they had been carrying something private, something they had not shared beyond a small circle of trusted people. Beside him, Yang Mei Mei watched his face, then nodded as if giving him silent permission to continue. The words that followed were simple, almost understated. They had become parents in secret. They did not dramatize it. They did not frame it as a twist. They spoke as people who had lived through months of uncertainty, holding on to a quiet joy they were unsure was safe to reveal. In that instant, viewers were invited beyond headlines and speculation. They were not being presented with an image. They were being entrusted with a truth. In an industry that rewards visibility and constant exposure, choosing silence can be a radical act. Yulong and Yang Mei Mei explained, gently but firmly, that their decision not to announce the pregnancy was not about secrecy for its own sake. It was about protection. They spoke of early medical appointments where the language was cautious, where possibilities were laid out like fragile glass on a table, complications, monitoring, outcomes that could not be predicted. At the same time, their professional lives demanded public appearances, interviews, red carpets. The contrast between those carefully edited images and the private reality of checkups, anxiety, and early morning calls from doctors was too stark to ignore. They understood that once the news was released, it could not be taken back. Every moment would be analyzed, every change in expression read as a sign. So they built a small circle around themselves and the child they were hoping to meet. In that circle there were no cameras, no rehearsed lines, only questions asked in whispers and reassurances shared in the quiet spaces between appointments. Silence for them was not avoidance. It was a form of care. As they spoke, it became clear that this story was not only about a pregnancy. It was about who they had to become in order to carry it. Yang Mei Mei described her own transformation with a kind of thoughtful honesty that resonated deeply. There were days when she felt strong and hopeful, and others when she questioned everything. Her body, her timing, her ability to be the kind of mother she wanted to be. There was a quiet courage in admitting that she did not glide through the experience with effortless grace. Yulong too spoke of change. He had always been someone whose life was measured in schedules, scripts, and releases. Yet, faced with the possibility of losing what he had barely begun to know, his priorities shifted. Work could be delayed. A scene could be res hot. But there was no second take for the moments when she needed him to simply be there. Together they learnt new rhythms. Slower, more attentive, more deliberate. The journey did not make them perfect, but it made them more aware of what truly mattered, and of the responsibility they now shared, not just to a child but to each other. When they finally said they wanted to introduce someone very small, but very important, the atmosphere changed again. The audience shifted forward in their seats, instinctively sensing that the heart of the evening was about to appear. There was no dramatic build-up, no elaborate staging. A member of the crew stepped gently onto the set, carrying a tiny child whose wide eyes reflected the studio lights. The room, normally filled with applause and music cues, fell into a soft, almost reverent quiet. Yulong's hands, usually so controlled in performance, were unmistakably careful as he took his daughter into his arms. She was not presented as a spectacle, but as a person curious, alert, and blissfully unaware of the scale of the moment. Young Mei Mei watched them both with an expression that held relief, pride, and a lingering trace of all the fear they had walked through to reach this point. In that simple act of standing together on stage as a family, they were not performing. They were acknowledging, in front of millions, that their lives had been irrevocably altered by someone who could not yet say her own name. What made their story linger was not only the revelation itself, but the details they chose to share afterwards. They spoke of a small bookshelf already filling with picture books chosen from different cultures, because they wanted her world to feel wide from the very beginning. They described early mornings when scripts lay untouched on the table, while they learned how to soothe a cry or celebrate a first smile. There was mention of a tiny hand reaching out to grasp a finger during a sleepless night, and how that simple gesture had more weight than any trophy they had ever held. They did not dwell on luxury or status. Instead, they talked about a soft blanket that traveled with them, an evening song that had become a ritual, and a quiet agreement never to let a day end without one of them saying aloud, "You are safe, you are loved." These were not scenes designed for public consumption. They were glimpses of a life purposefully kept away from constant exposure. By sharing them selectively, they allowed viewers to understand that the most important parts of their story often unfolded when no one was watching. Beyond the immediate emotion, their decision to speak carried a broader significance. For them, it marked the end of a long period of holding their breath, of wondering how much they could share without inviting pressures they were not ready to face. Naming their child in public, acknowledging her existence openly, was also a way of acknowledging their own growth. They were no longer simply actors responding to roles written by others. They were parents choosing how their family's narrative would be told. For viewers, the moment challenged a familiar habit, seeing public figures as distant, endlessly composed, untouched by the uncertainties that shape ordinary lives. Hearing two well-known faces describe fear, vulnerability, and the delicate balance between privacy and openness invited a more compassionate perspective. It reminded people that behind every carefully curated image might be someone silently navigating hospital corridors or sitting beside a bed in the early hours. In a world where so much is performed, this quiet honesty felt rare. It mattered because it asked us to look again not only at them, but at the hidden stories in our own lives and in the lives of those around us.